Hello everyone, welcome to my book reviews for June, and I did get through 6 books in June, and I'll do something a little different this month. Instead of reading or rating the books in order that I read them, I'm going to do the least liked book up to the best book that I read. So I'm going to start with this novella, and luckily I only paid $1.50 for it in a thrift store because I really didn't enjoy it, and that's The Bookshop by Penelope Fitzgerald. Now this was actually made into a motion picture starring Emily Mortimer, Bill Nighy, and Patricia Clarkson. So after I read this, I went on to YouTube just to see sort of snippets of this movie, and I think the movie's a lot better. This was very, very disappointing. I do like my Bookshop books, but this one just completely fell short. So this follows Florence, who is a widow in England in 1959 in a small coastal town, and she decides to buy up this old building and turn it into a bookstore. She does have some opposition, particularly from a very wealthy woman in town who wants to turn it into a community center. And yeah, this one was just so bland. I mean, it was a novella, but man, I just want to finish it up. So the characters are all very, very shallow, very flat. There's absolutely no depth to the characters. I finished the book and I thought, why did she even open a bookshop? She doesn't seem to even have a passion for books. They're not mentioned a lot. She might as well have opened like a little grocery store or a clothing store. Like, she just, the passion for books or whatever was never brought across or anything like that. The only character that was interesting was this 10-year-old girl who helped out at the shop. She was quite feisty. I enjoyed her, but the other characters were very, very one-dimensional, and that's it. So yeah, and then there's this weird supernatural element to it. They kept saying, oh, you don't want to buy it, this bookshop's haunted, and they describe in one scene about this poltergeist making all this noise, and then nothing's followed up about the supernatural element. It's just kind of thrown in there for some reason, and it just had no purpose to it. The ending was just kind of abrupt and like, what? Like, it just, in the last sentence was just bizarre. Yeah, it was kind of maybe a story like David versus Goliath, this small widow opening up a bookshop versus this wealthy woman who wants to open a community center. I don't know what the purpose was. Yeah, it was boring. The characters are bland. Yeah, I have to give that just a 1 star, I have to say. You know, check it out on YouTube or wherever it is, and you know, the concept was good, but no, it just didn't work. Okay, the next book is Katrina Ward, Looking Glass Sound, and I did read Last House on Needless Street, which I did like. I kind of guessed what was going on about halfway through the book, but it was still an interesting book. Gave it 4 stars, I believe. So Looking Glass Sound, so this writer returns to this small Maine town where his parents had inherited this cottage on the shore, and he makes friends with this other young girl and boy. Well, I think they were teenagers at the time, actually. And it ends up there's some of these strange disappearances and possibly murders along this coast and that. And it kind of goes back and forth in time to the present, to that particular summer when really strange things were going on. Yeah, this one, I did like the writing. It was atmospheric. I did really like the characters. There's a lot of depth to the characters. But it got very confusing, especially maybe the last 25%, when they were kind of doing reveals and what really happened in the past. It got very, very convoluted. It's almost like a book within a book within a book. And you didn't know what, a very unreliable narrator. You didn't know what was true and not true. He had macular degeneration, and there's a syndrome where, because your eyesight is so limited, that your brain kind of tries to make up for it, and that causes hallucinations and that. So that's why he became a very unreliable narrator. Yeah, it was very confusing. I had to kind of go back a few pages and reread it to make sure I figured out what was going on, because yeah, you're getting everyone's point of view and different stories within a story, and yeah, it got very confusing. So yeah, it was, I mean, I didn't mind the writing, like I said, and it was a very interesting concept. I liked the characters, atmospheric. It was just such a convoluted plot and reveal in that. So I'm still not really sure definitely what was real and not real. I have a very good idea, but anyway, I give it like about a 3-star anyhow. And then Barbara Erskine, The Dream Weavers. So I've read a couple of her books. I know the one was called River of Destiny, and there's 3 different timelines, and she usually goes back quite far in time. Like this particular one, the past is in 775 AD, and then the present, and it goes back and forth, and eventually, like a lot of her stories, kind of the past kind of melds and affects the future. Now, Barb, she gets a little long-winded, like I said before. This one was 500 pages. Could have been at least 100 shorter than that. And it just follows this young, like, princess. She has 2 other sisters, and her parents, of course, want to marry her off to the wealthiest, most powerful other king in you know, wherever, and she ends up falling in love with this other person, and she's kind of disowned from the family and sent away. And then in present time, there is a woman, can't remember her name, why don't I see it on here? But anyway, O.B., she is the wife of a pastor, but she sees, when she meditates or she sleeps, she can go into past, go back in time and actually witness events from the past. So she ends up going to this particular cottage to help out this person who is renting a cottage, and hearing and seeing all these voices and seeing all these people and that. So she helps to kind of investigate for him, and she ends up kind of going back in time quite a bit through meditation, etc., and finding out what happened to this princess and her lover back then. Yeah, it was, I didn't mind it. I've read better ones from her. Like I said, it was so long and repetitive, and then her daughter, B's daughter, got involved, and then it went in a totally different tangent. Just seems like she was just doing way too much for this book. So yeah, wasn't definitely my favorite from her. It was quite fascinating. I gotta say, it was atmospheric, and the characters were quite interesting, especially the ones from the past and their culture and their traditions, etc., etc. But yeah, this one kind of fell short for me, so I'll give this like a 3.5. Alrighty, so we're slowly getting better here. This is The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil. So it looks like an innocent enough cover, but this book does get quite dark at times. So this takes place in England in 1850, and there is 2 sisters who are working in this doll factory, making these like little miniature and bigger dolls and that. And yeah, I think they still live with their parents, but they go to this factory to work, and during this time, the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park is being built, like an exhibition, that big exhibition. And she goes there one day just to see it being built, and she runs into this character called Silas, who owns a taxidermy shop, and like an oddities shop. So there's taxidermy and bones and other strange things that he sells in his shop. And he sells a lot of oddities like taxidermy and that to artists who use those in his painting. And so Iris is the main character. She bumps into this Silas. They have a very, very brief conversation, and she's on her way. Little does she know that Silas is completely obsessed by her. Silas is not too stable. Has some issues. So yeah, when Silas becomes obsessed with you, look out. So anyway, she ends up, she hates her life in this doll factory. She just doesn't see any future. She wants to paint herself. She really wants to be an artist. So eventually she becomes the muse for this particular artist. So she models for him, for his paintings, and they end up falling in love. But Silas is in the background. Mr. Creepy there is in the background, wreaking havoc. So yeah, it was actually really, really good. It sort of talks about the norms of the day where women are just not able to fulfill their dreams or their ambitions. I mean, she really, really wants to be an artist. She's very good at it. And there's an interesting relationship between her and her sister and her parents, and how society now judges her because she is living alone, making a living painting. And on the other hand, there's the very creepy, suspenseful thriller aspect of the story, how Silas is obsessing after her. And yeah, there's a lot going on. There's romance, there's suspense, there's thriller, mystery. It's just all around was a very enjoyable book. There's very dark aspects to this. If you there's animal cruelty, and they talk about pedophilia, etc. So there's some really dark stuff going on here. But yeah, it was just a very, very interesting book, and I really would like to read more from her. So I give that a 4-star. And then these last two, they're both equally really good and very enjoyable. This is Deanna Raybourn, The Impossible Impostor, and this is the 7th Veronica Speedwell mystery. I absolutely love this series. This follows two characters, Veronica Speedwell and her, and a natural historian, Stoker, and yeah, they just had the most wonderful relationship, and they go on all these different adventures, and they solve all these mysteries, and it's humorous, it's suspenseful, it's mysterious, it's atmospheric. Just really, really enjoy that series. And then the last one is The Girl in His Shadow by Audrey Blake. And luckily I was able to get the sequel on Book Outlet. This is the first book. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's a medical history, and which I found just fascinating. So this follows Nora Beatty. So during a cholera epidemic in London, England, she is orphaned, and the doctor who is visiting her family, trying to take care of them, ends up taking her in as a ward. And throughout the years, she becomes sort of his assistant, and she's extremely intelligent. She is just as good as any male doctor, but back then, at the time, she was not allowed to practice medicine, so she could have been charged and sent to prison if she was found out, so she has to keep this very secret. And then a new doctor comes in to sort of learn a little bit more from Dr. Croft, who is her sort of guardian. And she's thinking, well, how am I going to keep this secret when I'm doing so much of this work and that. So yeah, I just lost my train of thought. But anyway, something ends up going wrong, and she there is a chance that she's going to be found out, and the consequences of that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was, the medical parts of it was very interesting. This is when Ether was starting. Oops, just a sec, I gotta cool off here. Oh, sorry. So this was around the time that Ether started being used for medical procedures and that. Before, Ether was actually like a party drug for the wealthy. They would use it during parties and have some wild times or not so wild times. And then slowly the medical community was starting to think, well, maybe we can use this during medical procedures and that. So just it was very fascinating book. And yeah, the characters were just so wonderful. Yeah, I really am looking forward to reading the sequel to this. So those are the books that I have read in June, and I just a few minutes ago, the mailman delivered another 10 books from Awesome Books. So I do have a pile of used books from Awesome Books, which is a UK-based online store that sells new and used books, and then a few from Book Outlet also. So I will hopefully do that video soon so I can tuck those away. So everyone, happy reading for July. And yeah, I know I'm posting this late. Finally got my computer working again. So everyone take care, and we'll see you soon.